Good morning, everybody. You're very, very welcome to this information session for the Swords Cultural Quarter Musician in Residence 2026. Just to introduce you to all of us who are on screen here, my name is Deirdre Moynihan. I'm the head of programs at Music Network and really looking forward to chatting to you about this exciting award this morning. So I'll hand you over to Kieran and Linda just to say hello.
Hi, I'm Kieran. I'm the operations coordinator with Music Network, and I'm your sort of point of contact if you're getting in touch about anything to do with the residency and the applications between now and the closing date.
Hi, my name is Linda Shevlin and I'm the Programme Development Manager for Swords Cultural Quarter. And I suppose I'll be your point of contact once you commence the residency, and I'll be hosting you at the Carnegie Library in Swords once you begin.
Great, thank you very much. So just the format for today for the information session. So we're going to screen share here in a minute, and I'm going to just talk you through, I suppose, some of the logistics of the application process and things like that. You'll have a lot of information already in the guidelines, which I think our colleague Jamie is going to put a link to in the chat box there if you'd like to download them. And they can be helpful just to kind of follow along or highlight a few things as you're listening to us chat through, talk to you about the residency opportunity. So after that, a little bit later, Kieran is going to tell you a bit about what's available technically, a little bit about the space that's available to you in the Carnegie Library. And then Linda is going to share some insight about the residency programs in general that Fingal Arts Office are managing, and also tell you a bit about last year's Musician in Residence. And then we'll open things to any questions you might have. I think Kieran or Jamie, if you can share the screen there, I'll start. So as we were saying, this is the Swords Cultural Quarter Musician in Residence information session. The award is funded by Fingal County Council Arts Office and managed by Music Network. As Kieran was saying, your point of contact, Kieran will be the point of contact. If you have any questions in the lead up to the deadline date, if you want to chat through any of the artistic ideas, I'm happy to chat with you as well. So we're available to you for any questions. But this residency provides an opportunity to, I suppose, develop and showcase new work, and it can be compositional or performance focused. So really it's, what you'd like to do creatively, have a think about what might help you in your development at this point in your career. Be creative, be ambitious, but be realistic, what's achievable within the time available and within the resources available to you during the residency period. It can be, you might want to compose a new work and bring people together to perform the work. It might be about developing a new artistic collaboration. There might be people that you would like to perform with that you've never performed with before, or it might be an individual project. So it's very open in terms of what's possible to apply for here. So let your imagination bring you where you want it to go artistically. So it's an exciting opportunity, and we look forward to hearing all of your ideas. There is one musician in residence opportunity in 2026. So Kieran, you might, So who can apply? So it's open to professional musicians aged 18 or over, performing in any genre. So it's very open again in this respect, but you must have a minimum of 2 years performance experience in professional environments. So, you need to have been performing as a professional musician, of course, share your track record in non-professional environments and, maybe student environments, all very, very valuable to share. But, you do have to be performing for a minimum of 2 years in a professional setting. You can apply as an individual or a group, and the groups can be existing groups or new collaborations. If you're applying as a group, it'll be one person representing the group. And a key thing to be aware of is everyone in the group must demonstrate a strong connection to Fingal County. All musicians in a group must be aged 18 or over, and all must have 2 years performance experience. So just be mindful of that if you're applying on behalf of a group. And then we have a note at the bottom just to highlight that if you're a composer who's a performer, you can be the main applicant as an individual or representing a group. But if you're a composer who doesn't perform, you can be involved in an application, but you can't be the main applicant. So just bear that in mind when you're kind of putting together your ideas. So just to briefly outline what you will receive if you're appointed as the musician in residence. So a bursary of €6,000. You have access to the space in the Carnegie for up to 10 days between August and October. And that's a picture of the space there. Kieran is going to tell you a little bit more about that space and other areas of that building in a little while. You see the third point there, you have access to a desk space to work at the Carnegie on additional days. And that might be for quiet work, you know, if you want to, for example, it might be for compositional work, or if you want to research, you know, so there is, in additional to the days, the 10 days in the main space that you see there, there's an opportunity to work in another space available to you. And then we refer to, this is new for this year, space to present one concert either at the Carnegie or in Swords Castle. And Linda's going to tell you a little bit more about Swords Castle. So this would really depend on, you know, what would be most suitable for the work you're presenting. And then finally, the last point, space to present additional events, for example, a showcase, open rehearsal or workshop. And the location for this would be discussed with the Arts Office team. So, you know, when I suppose this is an opportunity to engage with the community. So really have a think about, you know, what would be really, I suppose, interesting to share about your practice, what groups you might share your work with. You know, it's a lovely way to really connect with the wider community in Fingal County, and, you know, then a suitable space would be discussed as to, you know, whether it would be where the participant group are located. It might be in the Carnegie Library, it could be in Swords Castle, again, all to be discussed. But, you know, it's exciting that there's like lots of opportunities in terms of exploring the best possible space to kind of share your work with people. Now, the award of 6,000, just to say it is inclusive of that. And that first point, of course, it can be used or allocated for artist fees. Your artist fees as the main applicant, fees of other musicians or composers if you're planning to commission someone, or collaborators or mentors. You know, if you want to work with someone to, I suppose, help you advance your practice in a particular area, that would be referring to external mentors there. It's really important that all artists, all mentors, all collaborators are fairly remunerated for their work, for their contribution to the project. So when you are putting together, I suppose, your project idea, keep in mind the scale of your project. And whereas, as we said, you know, do be ambitious. It's important to be ambitious and, you know, to create what you want to achieve, but just be mindful that it's achievable, you know, in terms of the resources that are available for you as the musician in residence. So does the 6,000 cover everything in an appropriate way? By that I mean, can you pay everybody fairly? So, you know, you might need to scale your project idea accordingly to make sure that that's possible. The 6,000 can also be used to cover related expenses, you know, your travel costs, your subsistence for those 10 days that you will be in either the Carnegie space or Swords Castle, for example. Technical costs, if applicable. Now, Kieran again is going to talk a little bit more about what's available to you in terms of technical equipment in the Carnegie. But, you know, you may not need, you may decide everything is more appropriate to be shared acoustically, and that's fine. But just if you did need to, you know, hire an engineer, for example, or any technical equipment, you can allocate this from within the 6,000. Public liability insurance costs and employer's liability insurance, if applicable. So just to say that there's information about that on, I think it's page 10 of the guidelines. Yes, so you can find out more about that there. And if you have any questions, do ask us at the end of this session. And then just an important thing to be mindful of, that Music Network and Fingal Arts Office will cover any print or online PR costs associated with public-facing events. So this is not something that you have to provide for within the award. So you don't need to include costs for posters or anything like that within the residency award. So yeah, just to tell you a little bit about how you can apply, a very important thing to make you aware of. Of course, there's more detailed information about this in the guidelines, but it is an online application process, and you can apply through Music Network, or you'll also find a link on fingalarts.ie. You register and set up your profile. The platform that we use, I suppose, to manage the application process is Submittable. It's very straightforward, very user-friendly. It enables you to, to go on, have a look. Once you've created your profile, you can look at what the requirements are. You can go through the application form. You can save a draft as many times as you want. So it's useful to go on kind of straight away and see what the requirements are. And then as and when you can, you complete certain stages, and only when you're completely happy with it, then you press submit. So it's great that you can come back to it as many times as you need to. A key thing to be aware of is that you will receive a confirmation email once your application has been successfully submitted. So this is kind of an automated response, and if you haven't received that response from Music Network as soon as you, well, even within a few minutes of when you have submitted your application, do get in touch with us, because there may have been a technical glitch that you're unaware of. Perhaps your internet went down, and unless you receive that email, it means that we haven't received your application. So do check your I suppose your spam folders in case it's been mistakenly redirected there, and if not, get in touch with Kieran at Music Network at that email address you see there, operations@musicnetwork.ie, or you can phone us also on 014750224. Of course, we can't accept late applications, so really important thing to be aware of is the deadline, which you see highlighted there at the end of this slide. So at 2 p.m. on the 7th of May, that's Thursday the 7th of May, the window for applications will close, and it won't be possible to accept any applications submitted after that. So make sure to, if you can at all, submit at least the day before, just in case you have any technical issues on the day, and it'll be a lot less stressful all around. So yeah, just make a note of that. The 7th of May at 2 p.m. is the deadline for applications. So just to briefly run through, again, this is all in the guidelines, but what you will need to upload. So you're asked to submit a document explaining in detail the ideas and activities you want to focus on during your residency. So as I mentioned at the start, this is, what you want to achieve, think creatively, be ambitious, what you want to achieve, how you're going to go about it, like have a clear plan in place, maybe for the 10 days, what you want to do each day, and how you're going to bring your project and your idea to fruition. So it's a really nice opportunity to clearly outline what you want to do, how you're going to go about it, and what the end goal of your residency is. You're asked to submit your CV and biographies of any musicians, composers, mentors, or other artistic collaborators you intend to work with during your residency. You're asked to submit 2 samples of your work that show different styles or approaches, and they can be audio or video. So you can either upload MP3 files, or you can upload a Word doc, which would, for example, include a link to a YouTube video, or a SoundCloud file. I would say just make sure that none of the links you submit are password protected. If they are, include the password so the assessors can view or listen to the sample you've submitted. And just be mindful of the samples that they really do offer the best representation of your work, and that they're relevant to, I suppose, showcase what it is you want the assessors to hear about your playing or your performances. You also have an opportunity to upload a 1-minute video telling us about your proposed program. And this is, I suppose, a chance to summarize in your own words, what you want to do again and why, and I suppose to bring it to life, to bring it off the page. So it doesn't have to be recorded on anything more than a mobile phone. So something very straightforward. It's really just tell us about your idea and why you want to do this. Two final things, you're asked to submit a detailed project budget. So all the costs associated, and just again, as I mentioned, really important to make sure that everyone is fairly remunerated for their work. So your residency budget needs to kind of clearly outline fees, whether that's rehearsal fees, performance fees, mentoring sessions, anything like that. All of that has to go into that project budget, and your don't forget your insurance as well. And then finally, 2 letters of recommendation. These can be from former teachers, current teachers, mentors, organizations you have performed with, for example, previous collaborators. Just, have a think about who would be best to really endorse what it is you do and to recommend you as an artist. So then I think we've come to the point where I will hand over to Kieran, who is going to tell you a little bit more about the space in the Carnegie.
Thanks, Deirdre. Yes, so I'm just going to go through a couple of points just about the space itself at the Carnegie and what's there and how it kind of all works when you're in there as a musician in residence. So on the technical side of things, the creative space within the Carnegie, so the kind of the main room is an acoustic space. And by that, I mean there's no sound equipment in situ. So there's no PA system or amplification or anything like that. It's kind of like a blank space to work in. So if you were going to be using any equipment, you would need to bring that in with you. And if you were going to hire any equipment, that is something that would need to be included within your project budget. So any costs associated with that would need to go into your budget. The main space is on the first floor of the Carnegie building, and there is a lift which goes up to the space, but that is an accessibility lift rather than a lift to bring equipment up with. So it's kind of for access needs for a person can go into the lift, but not kind of loaded up with equipment. So any equipment that you would be bringing in, just be mindful that would need to be brought in via the staircase, which I will be able to show you now shortly a picture, just so you can see what that looks like. There is a large conference screen available in the space itself. So if you were doing anything that involved any visual elements, you could, of course, use that screen, and there's all the necessary adapters there available as well. So that could be used. But in terms of equipment, that's kind of the only thing there for you to use. Anything else would need to come in. And the audience capacity of the space. So you could have your concert taking place in the Carnegie space itself, or also we have the option for that to take place at Swords Castle if that was something that would work for your particular project. And the audience capacity is of actually both spaces is of 50 people. So just it is a kind of intimate venue. So it does work well, obviously depending on the style of music you're playing, for acoustic performances as well. So that is, you don't necessarily need to have a PA system or an engineer for a concert. If it would work acoustically, the space works well for that as well. Just to mention on that, in terms of PA systems, because the Carnegie is located in a residential area, it is more of an acoustic space for working during your residency period. So if it was your kind of project you were thinking, it would be a full band with a drum kit kind of playing every day. That may not work very well for this particular space, just because there would be some sort of noise restrictions when you're booking in your time of when that could be, allowed kind of playing and rehearsing is just wouldn't really work in this particular space. So just do bear that in mind when you're putting together your proposal. And then in addition to the main creative space, there is also shared desk space available on the ground floor for quieter work. So that is, there could be other people using that space. It's a shared space, but you could certainly use that, and it would be a good way to kind of link in with who else is around as well. And there could be some other artists in residence that you could have an opportunity to meet there if you're working in that shared space. So I have a few images to show you of the Carnegie itself, and there is in the guidelines on page number 10, there is a link for a virtual tour of the building. So you can kind of go in, it's like a 3D tour around, and you can see all areas. You can kind of do a virtual walkthrough, if you like, of the space. But you can see here that is the staircase I mentioned to the first floor where the main creative space is. So that is where any equipment you're bringing in will have to go through. So it's particularly if you are a piano player and we're thinking of maybe hiring a piano for your final performance at the Carnegie, that would be a tricky place to get a piano up. So just it would be something to bear in mind for when you're putting together your proposal. Now, there is actually, I will also mention a site visit to the Carnegie tomorrow, the 22nd at 6:30 p.m., which you can sign up to, and you can kind of come and you'll see the space itself there and you'll be able to get a feel for it. So if you are in the area tomorrow, please do sign up and come along to the site visit so you can see the space in person. And then the image on the right-hand side here, this is the shared desk space on the ground floor. So it is, yeah, so there's a desk there and you can work away on kind of quieter research, compositional work. You could have access to that space there as well. So this shows the main creative space on the first floor, kind of from one end looking towards the other. And you can see that it is quite a long room. There's lovely tall ceilings. It's very bright. And it's a really nice space to be in, so it would be a lovely space to work. And you can see there as well, there is that screen I mentioned down the far end. So, and then we have a view from the other side, looking back down, that's the other end of the room, and you can see the door at the back there. That is where the accessibility lift comes in for any access needs. There is the lift there, so you'd enter kind of through that door. But do have a look at that online, the virtual tour, and it will give you a good feel for the building itself. So just before we go on to the Q&A session, I am going to hand over to Linda, who's going to tell you a little bit more about the Swords Cultural Quarter and also about some of the work that Alana did on her residency last year.
Great, thanks, Kieran. Yeah, so I'll make the assumption that most of you are fairly familiar with Swords and may have noticed that there's quite a lot of development happening there at the moment. But essentially, Swords Cultural Quarter is a major infrastructural investment from Fingal County Council. The Cultural Quarter will encompass 4 main infrastructural elements. There's County Hall, which is already existing, Swords Castle, the Carnegie Library, which is the space where this residency will be hosted, and then Culture House, which will be a multidisciplinary arts centre. It'll be a flagship library, and we will have a gallery, a 165-seater theatre. We'll have a rehearsal space. We have maker spaces and kind of communal social spaces for more kind of informal events. And they can be kind of acoustic performances, readings, talks, that kind of thing. So it's a very open, very beautiful space where we're, I suppose, at the moment, kind of a lot of the work that we're doing around the Carnegie is, I suppose, piloting and testing what we can potentially program into Culture House. At the moment, we are doing a number of call outs for artist residencies. Alongside this musician in residence, we also have currently we have a film company in residence. They're a Fingal-based company called Cork Hill Films. We'll be doing a call out for a poet in residence, a theatre maker in residence, and we'll also be bringing in a socially engaged producer in residence who's going to help us with developing art projects, working specifically with communities in Fingal. So Alana was one of our first artists in residence last year. Um, the original residency in her proposal had a really strong connection to Fingal, where she wanted to research ancient ghost stories that are connected with various historical sites around Fingal. So a lot of her work was it was very site specific in that she spent a lot of time in different sites around Fingal and kind of anchored it in the Carnegie, which in itself has this very much steeped in history around knowledge and community. She spent time in Swords Castle, in Ardgillan Castle, meeting with local representatives, I suppose, working with the archives team who are actually located right next door to the Carnegie. So they had a really lovely relationship in terms of helping Alana with some of her research. And Alana, around kind of towards the end of her residency, she presented a performance on Samhain in Fingal County Council in the atrium space. She had proposed, I think, around 4 compositions originally, but by the time her residency ended, she had sort of started on an additional number of compositions. So we decided to extend the residency to, I suppose, give her the opportunity to really kind of complete that full suite of compositions. And she's going to be performing a selection of them tomorrow night after the site visit. So there's also an opportunity tomorrow to meet with Alana, to maybe potentially ask her questions about her insights and her experience on the residency. From our perspective, it was really rewarding, really fulfilling. Alana is a harper, and one of the most beautiful things about coming into the Carnegie was knowing that Alana is upstairs writing these beautiful pieces. And we could just hear her music throughout the entire building. And it was just, it was a really, really fabulous experience from our side as well, having a musician there. And really looking forward to having a similar experience with somebody new. But as part of her residency as well, Alana had only newly moved to Fingal, so it was a lovely way for her to kind of connect with the local community and I suppose bed herself down as a musician in the area. And it's created a lot of new opportunities for her in terms of making connections, which has been really great. She presented a workshop with music generation, and they're now looking into, I suppose, researching how they can expand their instrument offer to include harp. We've also seen an increase in harpers who are applying for the Fingal Artist Support Scheme, which I'm not sure it's a direct result of Alana's contribution, but it's really lovely to see it as an instrument kind of expanding in the county. And Alana also worked with our libraries team. We're developing a songwriters program where they were meeting in the Carnegie weekly for 6 weeks. And Alana was brought in as an external, I suppose, an external teacher for one of the weeks of their workshops, which was really lovely. And they're going to be presenting the work that they did during that workshop in Swords Castle on the 30th of April. So all in all, it started out as quite a tight residency, but it definitely grew wings. And that's exactly what we're here to do, come in with a kernel of an idea. And in the arts office where I work, we can look at different ways of sort of channeling it and helping you to kind of develop it into something that really kind of matches your ambition and matches your creativity. So happy to answer any questions that folks might have at the end of the session. Oh, Swords Castle. Sorry, I was to talk about Swords Castle. So because we're now kind of developing this program around supporting artists to develop work as part of the Swords Cultural Quarter, where Alana was working very specifically in the Carnegie, we want to be a little bit more fluid this year and offer Swords Castle also as a venue for presenting work. And that's something that I can work with you in collaboration. We can introduce you to the team who manage the space. And if you feel it sits kind of thematically or conceptually with what you're developing, it's something that we can facilitate for sure.
Great. Sounds fantastic. Linda, great to hear about Alana's experience last year. It sounded like it really evolved as the residency unfolded, which is really exciting. I mean, it's fabulous for, I think, a fabulous opportunity for
Hmm.
an artist, I think, to have that, willingness to, grow with them, Linda, so that's a huge credit to the Arts Office and yourself for that, approach. Oh, actually, one thing, sorry, I think that would be just helpful to draw people's attention to is in the guidelines you have on page 7 the selection criteria, just to be aware that there's 4 criteria listed there. So just be mindful of those criteria when you're putting together your idea and your application, because those four criteria are the basis on which your application and everyone else's application will be assessed. So it's important to kind of be mindful that you align with the criteria, because that is how all of the applications are assessed. Again, if there's a kind of a note of explanation below each kind of listed criteria. So hopefully it does explain what the panel will be looking for and at. But again, get in touch if you have any questions about anything in relation to that.